Hi, everybody. Tami here with Wisteria Painting or the Painting Garden. What I first want to show you are the different things that I use. Okay. So these are the paints that I use. They're made by Folk Art, and there's a couple different places you can find them. Might sometimes might not be able to find every color. Walmart carries Folk Art. I would tell you not Hobby Lobby because it's very far and few between. Michael's, again, very far. You'd be lucky if you find the right colors, if you can find them. Joann's is another good one. But if you need to order quite a few paints and you're not sure, I would just go to Plaid online. Now, they have discontinued colors. We'll just, have to mix or improvise with other colors as we go. If you want to go to Plaid online, you type in enamels. That shows all the colors that are in stock. Now, if there's a color that they no longer make in the enamels, I am switching over to the multi-surface. So here is the multi-surface paints. It looks the same. The difference is this one says enamels, this one says multi-surface. It's the same exact paint. The only difference is the sheen of the color. So the enamels is high gloss, the multi-surface is satin paint. We can mix with them, we can paint both on the pieces, we can paint with both. The only difference that you would see if we painted an entire piece in the multi-surface, it would have a satin finish compared to the enamels, which has a gloss finish. Now, you do not want to mix the acrylic, okay, with this because acrylic does not have the properties in the paint that makes the paint stick to the glass. Both of the paints are air dry, 21 days, or you can bake them, both brands. So on the pattern packets, it will tell you if there's a certain color that I'm using in multi-surface. I try to mix as much as possible in the enamels, but if there's a color that I just cannot get, I a lot of times will jump to the multi-surface. And if you can't find a color, don't panic. There'll be something you have that we can mix that can get pretty close. So those are the paints I use. You're going to need regular rubbing alcohol because all our surfaces, most of them we wash them down with rubbing alcohol. So just go to the Dollar Tree and buy, this one's only 50%. You don't need to have the 99% or the 80%, just something that you can clean your surface with. You can also buy these little alcohol swabs. They work just as good. It's just to wipe down our surface before we start painting. Okay, so make sure that you have some rubbing alcohol on hand. I spoke to a lady a few weeks ago about some paint at Folk Art, and she asked me, if you have some thick paint, what do you thin it with? And I said, well, I'm a water person. I just put a little water in. And they don't like to hear that because water will supposedly compromises the paint. But I put that much water in it. So she told me to get what's called Mosh Podge Ultra. And they have gloss and satin, so I don't really think it makes a difference. You just need to make sure that it says Ultra on it. And this is what they're finding too, because some of the paints you get from Folk Art are very thick. And this is what they're finding. You just add a little bit of this Mod Podge Ultra to your paint, and that will help it thin. Now, if you have paints that are really, really old, you're going to have a difficult time getting them to move. So I would suggest that if you have really old paints, just go out and get new paint. Like I said, I bought mine at Michael's, but I'm sure you can get it online if you can't get out on Amazon, that type of thing. And I don't think it makes a difference if you get the gloss or the satin. I just got the gloss because the enamel paints are gloss. The other thing you need to have is a sponge. Okay, I like these round ones because you can take them and you can squeeze them and you can get a nice rounded surface here. You can use a regular sea sponge too, but I love these. And I know that they have them at the craft stores. I've seen them. They usually come two in a pack. I always have the Q-tips sitting at my table because if you are painting and you don't like something, it's easy to grab the Q-tip. And believe it or not, I do not take the Q-tip and put it into water. I actually take the Q-tips and I actually put it in my mouth and get just a little bit of saliva on it. Is enough water on that Q-tip that will take off a mistake or something that you're using. So make sure you have Q-tips next to you. Okay. Now I'm going to show you the brushes I use. So I paint with King Art, regular painting brushes, and I use the King Art Premium. I purchase my brushes from Brushes and More. They are, I think, in Oregon now. They've moved. And there's 4 brushes I use all the time and paint with all the time. So the first one is a number 4 filbert. Then I use a 2 filbert because those 2 brushes basically will let me do just about everything I need to do. Okay. Then I always use a 4 flat because I paint flowers pretty small. I use a 4 flat to do a lot of shading, but you can use 6, 8s, 10s, 12s. Those are just your regular brushes that you have in your arsenal for painting. And then I also like script liners. Now, I was taught back in the day to use very long liner brushes. So, of course, get used to what you've learned on, and that's what you usually like to paint with. But this is what I use, and it's a 10-aught script liner. So those are my 4 brushes that I take with me anywhere and everywhere if I have to paint something, because I know I can achieve what I am doing with those 4 brushes. The next thing that I use is Julie Bean makes glass art brushes. They're actually made by Dynasty, but they gave them to her because she is a wonderful glass painter also. And you get, let me open it up so you can see. It's actually a really good deal because I think you get 7 brushes in this group here. Let me get them out. Okay. So in there, you are going to get a number 1 round. You are going to get a number 3 round. So you can see how they're round here. You are also going to get an 1/8-inch flat. Those brushes right there are the 3 brushes that I use all the time. Okay. The other ones in the group, I don't use as much, but they're kind of more specialty brushes. But these are the 3 that I use all the time. The 1 round I use on every piece. Okay. The flat 1/8-inch brush is when you're base coating, the bigger the brush, the less brush strokes you will get. This is great when we're doing bigger things. And the 3 round is just, again, when we're doing bigger things. I use my 1 round all the time. And this one I use only if I'm base coating like inside of a glass. So say I have a wine glass and I've painted a check space on the outside of the glass and the inside of the glass I'm painting with paint. This is a great brush to do, say if we were doing a vase, to paint the inside of something because it's nice and big. Now, these brushes are made of camel hair. Okay, they're very, very, very soft. And the reason that I use these for base coating is because when you go to base coat something on glass, you need to have a soft brush. If you use a regular film brush to base coat in, these are stiff and they spring back and they don't let the paint adhere to the piece of glass very well. So with the camel hair brush, the bristles are so soft that the paint adheres nicely. And usually the first coat will be a little splotchy. The second coat covers wonderfully. Okay. So that is why I use these for base coating. You can use them to do stroke work. I find them a little too soft for me, just because I like the filbert brushes and they don't make a filbert in this set, but they don't make a filbert at all. So that's why I tend to go back to my filbert brushes for doing the stroke work. So this one's wonderful for that. Then they give you this rake brush, which is great for doing Santa's beards, or if we need to put a lot of lines in something. This is a rake brush. It works wonderful too. I just don't use it a lot because I tend to use my liner brush more than anything. Then you get these 2 long liners, and one's a 10-aught and one's a 1. They work good too, but again, they're very soft. And I just feel, for me personally, have more control with my regular liner brush than I do with these, but these work just as great too. Okay, so that's what comes in the set. Then the other set is what's called a cleanup set, and it looks like this. Okay, and in this set, you get 3 tools, and all 3 of these tools are wonderful tools that you're going to want to have. So let me get them out and show you. Okay, so the very first brush that I'm going to show you is the wave angle brush. And you can see here that it's cut at an angle and it has a wave. I use this brush all the time to paint Christmas. The next thing in here is this little tool. It's got a little sponge on here. And this is for when you're cleaning up wet paint. So kind of like your Q-tip, you get it wet, you go to your piece, and if you have something that you don't like, you just take this and you can take it and wipe off, go to your paper towel, come over here and wipe it off. And this is what's good for using to remove wet paint. I use this tool a lot to do dots. Instead of stylus or the end of the brush, I can use the smallest dots or the biggest dots because it's just the pressure that you're putting down to do dots on things. So that's what I use that tool for. And this tool is a tiny little stylus, and it is very, very tiny at the tip. So if I have to do really, really tiny dots on something, I use this a lot. I use this tool to put my pattern on with because it's so small. It's not a big stylus. So I use that for that. But what it is made for is we've done this piece and we don't like something. There's something on there we don't like. So I'm going to show you. This tool will come in. This has been sitting a while, but you can see how I'm removing that leaf. I don't like that leaf there. I've decided that that leaf is not for me. And you can see here how this tool will take off that paint. So this is to remove dry paint. If you don't have these sets, go to wisteriapainting.com, my website. At the bottom of the page, it will have a link that takes you to Etsy. So if you need to get these tools, you can buy them off of my Etsy site. The only other thing that I would tell you to get is you need to get white graphite. It needs to be a white graphite that has a chalky finish on the back. If you go to Hobby Lobby and buy that graphite from them, it doesn't work very good on glass. So make sure that you have a graphite that has the chalky finish on the back. I know that Pinecraft, for you, those of you that paint on wood, they sell this really nice graphite, okay? I would get white and black. I would say 90% of the time, I always use white. I don't use black very often, but there are times where we put the white on and you can't see it. So we'd have to jump to the black to put a pattern on. Usually I only put patterns on for things that are very detailed, that I need the line drawing, the outside edge, just to give me that pattern. So I'm putting it on nicely and not trying to freehand it. But a lot of my flowers are all freehand, so you won't even use it. But you've got to make sure that you have the chalky graphite.
How do you tell?
Take your graphite that you have, get a piece of glass and trace on, just go over it and see how it adheres to your glass. If your graphite is adhered to the glass fine, then you're good.
If you're in the store, how do you tell?
I wouldn't even mess around going to a store. Just go to Pinecraft. It comes in a package, and order their white graphite. Lowell Connell, their graphite paper is wonderful. So if you have graphite paper from them, they don't make it anymore, but that is the graphite paper that you want to use. Okay. It's chalky and it works wonderful.
The new etching that you showed us, that isn't really etching, that product, does it wash off? Will it dissolve in water?
I haven't tried it yet. When I did it, that is called the Frost Effect, and made by Folk Art. And when I did my globes, they used to make a frost paint. Deco Art used to make a frost paint that was permanent that you could not get off. Well, of course, in time they discontinue all kinds of things. So this was the only thing that I could find that worked, that you could add. You could actually add color paint to it and change the effect of what you want to do. When I did it on, let me see if I have the one I did it on.
I have used the spray on Frost Effect on
that comes off with water. So what I would tell you to do, if you want it permanent, you want to get, here it is. Like I knew I didn't get rid of it. If you want permanent, you want to get what's called etchol.
Okay.
Now this is the liquid. This is the liquid. There's a cream. You want the cream.
Mm.
Okay. Because the liquid, what happened to do this effect here, you
Mhm.
need to use the cream. The liquid, what the liquid is say you're going to take a wine glass. So you would pour this into a plastic container, and then you would take a wine glass and say you were going to etch the entire glass. You would submerge that glass into that plastic tote, and you would hold it there for 15 minutes or set something heavy on it, and it will actually etch that glass permanently. So the liquid is for using, like if you're dipping something. The cream would be if you're using a stencil, or you did like what I did with the sponge. Let's see if this will wipe this off. Heck, I've got a sponge here. This was the frost effect. Now this was done a couple weeks ago, so it's had a little bit of time to set, but let's go on here and see what happens. If it takes it off or not. It does. It takes it off. It's not permanent. I mean, and I had to, yeah, it's lifting it right off. So if you want it permanent or something like a wine glass, I would definitely use etchol over this. This would be for something decorative. Etchol is for being something that's permanent. I actually love this product. And you put it on, and it sits on for like 15 minutes. And you either are dunking it into a plastic container to do the liquid, or the cream you put on, like, with a sponge, where you take it, where I took it and I tapped it on and I sponged it on. You let it sit 15 minutes and then you go wash it off. And it's permanent.
What's really cool is that any excess before you start washing it off, take a squeegee, scrape it off, put it back in the jar, and it'll continue. You won't waste as much.
Right. You reuse it. And what's great about this is it etches it permanently, but it's smooth.
It's smooth.
There's no raised surface or anything like you would if you had a paint like the other one. So it's very smooth, and it is permanent, and you can reuse it. It's always reusable. You just scoop it up, put it back into the container. So I want to thank everybody for coming to my class. And this is Tami Carmody with Wisteria Painting. Thanks for watching.